So today we are going to be taking a look at the Caro opening, and I'm going to be sharing some lines that I've played throughout the years that I think are really good. My win rate with the Caro against the Caro is pretty high. So we can take, if you take a look at my openings tree here, um, against the Caro I think I've got, what is it, a like 75%, maybe 70% win rate, which is pretty high. And I want to share with you guys the towel variation and a bunch of different lines from it. Eventually this will be compiled into a YouTube video, but if you want to come along, your live questions will be answered. So first things first, this is of course our starting position for the Caro Khan. I've had 831 recorded games where I've played pawn to e5. I think I've pretty much played this like my whole life. And this is including all the Caros. But then after here, now, so this is one of the main lines. Bishop goes to f5. I will probably take a look at c5 at a later date, but that is a video stream in of itself. Today we're just going to be looking at bishop to f5. So after bishop to f5, our towel variation is pawn to h4, and it is very nice. After e5, you always go c5. Well, we're also going to take a look at some annoying stuff. You can play at that at another time, but we're going to be looking at bishop to f5 primarily. So on bishop to f5, hello Zugzwang on Twitch. After bishop to f5, pawn to h4, we have the towel variation. And you can see, first off, you can see this trap. It's kind of sad that I haven't won every single game in that line, but you can see that e6, of course, loses the bishop. And I'm going to switch back to this. Can anyone tell us why e6 loses the bishop? See a couple people joining. We're looking at the towel variation. g4, yep. And after the bishop goes to e4, say, we have f3. If the bishop goes back, we have h5. And this is kind of like a Noah's Ark trap. The bishop is stuck. One thing that black can try is something like queen to a5, but we can play very simply something like bishop to d2 or knight to c3. Be very careful, don't play pawn to c3, because then the bishop will capture the knight and it would escape. So let's put this on the board, something like here, this. I'm talking about queen a5. Be careful, don't play pawn to c3, as then black can capture your knight here. Instead, just play something like knight to c3. If the bishop comes out, you can go bishop to d2, and all of this tension will be solved. You can play a3, something like that. You'll win the bishop, and this should be a pretty straightforward win. That is a trapped bish. You are correct, Zugzwang. Okay, so that's just like really basic trap. You're probably not going to see this one very much, but something that you will see very often after h4, and the most common move after h4 is pawn to h5. Now, does anyone know what we like to play, or I'm going to be recommending against this pawn to h5 move? And even better if you can explain why it's being played. So I'm just going to give everyone some time. Bishop d3 is, I think that bishop d3 is the main line. What I am going to be suggesting you go for is a bit of a sideline. So bishop d3, yep, is a pretty decent move. It's what I started playing recently. But, and I see bishop d3 also being suggested by Zugzwang, both you guys going for the main lines. However, what I'm going to be suggesting is the move bishop g5. And the reason why I quite like bishop g5 is because this e6 pawn is pinned, which means that black will have a hard time developing all of their kingside pieces, and it will slow black down significantly. Okay, we're going to be covering the move pawn to f6, by the way, in a second, which is one of the coolest lines that I've ever really seen. It's so crazy, but once you remember it, then you will not forget it. And I think I've had like 10-15 wins in it. It's such a nice line. But first thing we're going to start with is queen to b6, because this is by far the most common move. So let's look at queen to b6. Now, what do we make of this move queen to b6? Well, it's attacking the b2 pawn, clearly. But the question that we have to ask is whether or not we care about the b2 pawn being captured. And e6? E6, I actually have had this a few times. E6 blunders the queen. That's why we played the bishop out to g5, so that we pinned the e7 pawn. e6 will blunder the queen. We will capture that and be very happy. So after bishop to g5, queen b6 is the most common move targeting the b2 pawn. Does anyone know what we play from this position? The most tricky move by far. Very tricky. Give you guys a couple seconds. The white pawn goes to e6. Yes, but we can't play it here because there's a bishop which can capture that pawn. But we will take a look at the e6 line with bishop d3. But yeah, just for everyone, bishop does go to d3 in this situation. And the idea is, I think someone in the Twitch already might know this line somewhat. After the queen takes on d3 and the queen takes on b2. Now, what is the move here? It looks like we're in some trouble, that the rook might be being lost. And I think a lot of people might go for something like queen to c3, trying to bail out and just get their knight developed. But let's see if anyone knows what's going on here. If anyone knows the tricks. Anyone on the YouTube or on the Twitch? It is white to move. White is actually objectively winning here. I mean, by winning, it's like +1. Bishop to c1. And after queen takes the rook, I'm not sure what the idea is. Also, the queen can take the bishop, so not quite. Queen to c3. Queen c3 saves the position, so you don't end up losing a rook. Good to see you, Ollie, as well. So queen to c3, not quite. The queens will exchange. It's quite a shocking move. What is the winning move? Yeah, I imagine queen c3 is probably about equal. I might just give it knight bd2 and queen b3. Knight bd2, there's queen takes rook with a check, and that is a little bit troubling. Okay, I'm just going to give it. The move is pawn to e6. And I think that someone in the Twitch already knew something about this line. Oh, you meant knight g to e2 and queen b3. This line, yes, this is you're very, very close to being along the right lines at this point. But there's a reason that we throw in this move pawn to e6. And that reason is so that black can't play pawn to e6 themselves and get their pieces out. Because if black can end up sacrificing the queen and develop their pieces happily, then black actually is a bit better here. But if we include the move pawn to e6, then black is unable to develop any of the king side, which means that after this rook is captured, hi Moscow, then you are in time with the move queen to b3, which is now attacking this b7 pawn. And that's why you don't have to develop your knight right away, because I'm sure, Chesswatcher, you were looking at queen takes on d4 here, probably something like this. But then we have queen takes on b7, and let's say, actually for starters, let's say the move queen to b6 is played. That attacks the knight and also hits the queen. So can anyone see the winning sequence here? There is a pretty nice win. Queen to c8, yeah? But then after the queen blocks, I have had a game that went like this, by the way. It was against a 2300, so not a bad player. How do we finish them off? Queen to c8 and queen to d8. Take f7, exactly. And then the king is forced away, and we will win the queen. Let's just put it on, and that is a win for white. Okay, so alternatively, what if white plays queen to e5, say? Any tips for trying to get candidate master? I don't know, I'm not a candidate master. You say you struggle in the opening. You might want to stick around for this, because this is an openings lesson stream. We will be covering the Tal variation of the Caro. But I don't know, if you're struggling in the opening, just learn some more opening theory. Like you got to be specific with what you're struggling with, right? If you have problems with the specific, it's very rare that you have problems with every single opening. You probably have a couple of openings that you get through very smoothly. So what you need to do is you need to analyze the positions that you're losing and make adjustments. Whether that's switching up lines, learning some extra moves. I am on YouTube as well, yeah, Ziggs1. Whether that's, switching up lines, analyzing extra moves, trying to memorize a little bit more theory, or potentially even changing your whole openings if you just don't enjoy the style of the positions and you know you're getting theoretical positions, but you're just not enjoying them. That's another thing. But mostly it's just kind of building up and adding to what you already have. So, okay, after the queen goes here, it's not king to f1, it's knight to e2, and for a very important reason. It's knight to e2 because we want to cover the f4 square with the bishop. It'll make sense soon, because after queen takes on e6, queen takes rook, we're attacking the knight here, and black tries to cover up and defend with, say, this move, let's say the reason is because if they were to play queen to d6, this move would actually consolidate, right? But I think I'm trying to remember what the line is here. I think this line might be bishop to e3. The idea being that there's no d4, and if there's c5 that you can take on c5, queen takes, and then you take the knight. So the knight covers d4. And if black does anything else, then you're taking a7 and you're going after the knight here. So if the queen goes to c8, we have bishop to f4. And if the queen goes to d6, I think it's bishop to e3. I'm just going to check. Oh, wait. Apparently this is rook to h3. Sorry for the misinformation. We've got this very weird move, rook to h3. You're trying to pick an opening, don't know a lot of theory. You want to play something offbeat. Well, I don't know. How like it depends how offbeat you want to go. If you go too offbeat, then you're just going to get bad positions. But do you want to learn opening theory? Or because if you're happy and you don't want to learn opening theory, then you're probably best off. Yeah, after bishop to e3. No, I think it's e6. I thought e6 takes. I don't know what the defense was. Because bishop to e3, I thought c5. There's bishop takes c5, and then I think I had a game that went like this, right? And there's no d4 because you just take. So what is the line here? There's queen to d8. Oh, and then you can develop the knight. Drops another pawn, but it's okay. That's an interesting one. Okay, so for some reason, after queen goes to d6, I've never seen queen d6. I only actually see queen c8 for some reason. But yeah, after queen d6, the only move is rook h3, and you play rook to b3. You play the collie with white. It's one of your friends is nearly 2,500 online. Has played the collie well. I mean, the collie's not bad. Yeah, if you want to play a system-based opening. Like, you can play any opening. It doesn't matter. As long as you know how that opening is played, right? That's what matters. So yeah, rook h3 and rook to b3. Yeah, the collie can get a bit boring. So we're going to go back. This is just one line. And we're going to take a look at some general games that I've played in this opening. Just so you guys can get an idea of how it's played. Because really, I think the best way to see is just to take a look at some example games. And then once you try and get a couple of the patterns and ideas down, you can go try it yourself. And then you'll see what goes wrong. And you can try and patch it up, make it better. That's generally my position when it comes to learning openings. Try and learn the basics. Play a couple games with it, see what goes wrong, and then fix it. You're thinking about playing the Nimzovich against e4. Is that knight c6? I can't remember. Is that knight c6 and d5 or something? Knight c6 and d6? I don't think it's very good, but you can try it. The issue is that if you go e4, yeah, 97.7 exactly. Knight c6, there's knight c3. How is the collie boring? Well, it's boring if you're playing the same stuff every time, even if you're attacking every game. But I think the collie can be a little bit boring against the King's Indian personally. I've not had that much experience with it. Anyway, we're gonna get started. We saw the classic queen to b6, bishop d3, takes. The queen takes on b2. Of course, what do we do in this situation? What do? We play pawn to e6. Pawn to e6, given an exclamation mark. After the queen takes with the rook, we have queen to b3. Now attacking the b7 pawn. We've covered what happens after queen takes on t4, and that's what happened. The queen took on d4, I took on b7, and they played queen to b6, oh, and we had this line. So you can see that these things do happen. I was playing a 2300 in a 10-minute rapid game, and we got this trick off, right? So let's take another look at another game. Playing a... Please do not send challenges. We're not playing viewers today. So we're going to take a look at another game. I was playing a 2300 from the UK. This is another 10-minute rapid game. Let's take a look at it. It was e4, Caro Khan, same old. Bishop came out, bishop d3. You found that Nimzovich holds up very well against engines. Why are you playing engines? Okay, we have e6. This time there was a capture, so that's an important thing. We need to see what happens after they take. You go knight to f3, you defend the pawn. They still can't really take the rook, because then we play queen to b3. They do take the rook, and we play queen to b3 anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of wacky theory. But there's also some wacky theory against c5. Okay, knight goes to d7. We castle. And what you'll notice is that black is up 7 points of material. They're up a rook and 2 pawns. You're analyzing with the engines. Okay. Well, you can play openings that aren't sound according to engines. It doesn't really matter. But generally... Yeah, generally it's a good idea to play something sound though. Okay. I mean, like, Eric beat a GM in the Stafford Gambit in the World World Blitz Championships, so clearly you can play some dodgy stuff and still get away with it. I mean, Stafford's like +2 or something. I played knight c3. Now the queen is trapped. You can see that this has worked very well. The queen is stuck. They have to sack. And I put my knight on e2. This is a pretty common idea in these positions where you have where black has the damaged pawn structure. And I want someone in the chat to try and explain why knight to e2 is a good move. Yeah. I mean, have you not seen? I think there's a guy in the UK. He's a candidate master, and I don't know if you guys have heard of Jonathan Schrantz, but this guy in one of the UK British Championships. It was a classical game. He played something called like the wheelbarrow gambit. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It was really weird. But it's basically this gambit where you like sack pretty much all your pawns on the queen side. I'm really struggling to remember it. The wheelbarrow gambit, something like that. But it's really bad. It's like +3 or 4 for white, and they win in classical. So people in classical, they're no better at evaluating crazy positions. In many ways, if you're the guy with the theory and you know all the traps, you can definitely get away with it. Unless you're playing like a super GM. Even then, people make mistakes if they don't know what's going on. Yep, knight to f4 is the idea. That's why we're playing knight to e2. We target the e6 pawn, the queen can go to e3. There's a lot of pressure on that. Queen can also go to d3. So it attacks, it attacks a lot of squares. It attacks e6 and also g6. So it's on a pretty nice position. They put their knight here. I put my queen on c3. Idea being that it's now attacking... I don't think it's the wheelbarrow. I can't remember it. So yeah, I played queen to c3, attacking this pawn. They defended it with the rook. I jumped my knight in, now attacking this pawn. And I'm assuming they played something like king f7. No, they played knight f6, because if king goes to f7, there would have been... I guess we could have played this. Not exactly sure what I would have done here. Probably I would have played queen to e1, attacking this pawn here, and you don't really have a good way to defend it, because this pawn is defended. There is e5 though. Could get a little interesting. Maybe after this capture, I don't know. But they didn't go for that. My knight jumped in. I played f3 just to stop their knight from moving forward. So they have so many weaknesses at this point that the position is just collapsing. The knight took on g6, went back, I hit the knight, made one exchange. And then after the queen infiltrated over here, this pawn's moving forward. The knight can give a check. This pawn's loose. My opponent just resigned. They were obviously not very happy. I wouldn't be very happy either in this position. The queen and the knight are just bullying the king. And it's a very nice position. So that's another example. Also another benefit. I don't know if you guys noticed, but let's go all the way back. People burn a lot of time. So they use 2 minutes already to reach this position. I'd only use 20 seconds, right? So people burn a lot of time when they don't know what's going on. Let's take another look. One last one. Almost a 2400 from Philippines. Same old, same old. They go b6, f6. And this time I play bishop d2. This is another idea that's worthwhile knowing about. The bishop can go to d2 and then to c3. And that way you can win the queen just for an extra minor piece rather than the rook. So I castled. I played rook e1 because I wanted to defend my pawn. I didn't want to give them anything. Then I go bishop c3. Queen gave a check. And the knight was being counter-attacked. The queen's still trapped in the corner of the board. Decides to sacrifice itself. We take a pawn. They resign. The game is just dead. I realized after the game I could have just taken the knight here. That would have been even more nasty because after the exchange, there's no stopping this checkmate. The king is so boxed. It's so boxed. Check. Checkmate. Hi Dev, what's up? Don't help people crush your opening. It's fine. I think you play c5 anyway, right? We're talking about the advanced Caro where you play bishop f5. So you're safe for now, Dev, but I will cover your opening with pawn to c5 at a later date. Okay. So I think that's probably enough examples. Oh, you played the bishop f5 one? Oh, you're in trouble then, Dev. We're about to... Well, I'm showing everyone the Tau variation. I don't know which line... Which line do you play, Dev? Do you play h5 against h4? You always play the advance against the Caro and struggle with any plans? With the weak e-pawn and open c file. Are you talking about the c5 one then? I will be taking a look at that one in the next openings live stream that I do. We will cover this one. There's no way you're playing this? As in you don't like this tau? Oh, you play h5. Okay. We have just covered h5 and bishop to g5. We took a look at queen to b6. There's a couple more that we have to look at. First off, I'm going to cover what the so-called refutation to this one is. Oh, you're not playing the wagon gambit? There's nothing wrong with it. It's called the Botvinnik. Yeah, it's the Botvinnik Carls, yeah. You play b6? Wait, what? Here, you play pawn to b6. I've never seen that before. Oh, you always get the queen b6 position. Yes, exactly. Do you ever go after the pawn? We have a Caro expert on the line. After bishop d3, what do you do, Dev? What do you go for? Don't be put off by all the arrows. I just want to know what you often go for. You got your queen trapped once? Oh no. Yeah, taking the pawn's just bad. Alien Gambit's getting popular. I don't like the Alien Gambit. You exchange bishops. Yeah, okay. So we've already taken a look at this line, Dev. You see Black's position, down 2 pawns and a knight stranded. There's loads of competition. Look at. I think the wagon gambit has 100% win rate in classical chess. So there's not many openings you can say that about. I think you've got to put some more respect on the wagon gambit's name. What do you want a game in the wagon where I play the wagon gambit? I don't think it's that bad. So if you go for the queen takes b2 line, we've already covered this. Pawn to e6 is very, very strong. Dev, if you've missed it, don't worry, I'll be uploading a edited version. But what's more important for you actually as a Caro player is that you should know that the best move here is actually queen takes on d4. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the chess.com. We're going to take a look at the queen takes on d4, which is the supposed refutation of the line that I'm showing you guys. Queen takes on d4. After this, we play knight to f3. They go here. Guy thought you were a man because you were so good at chess, and they made some bad jokes. I'm sorry to hear that, Red Mouse. So here, I think it's castles. Actually, I'm struggling to remember. This is one that I got wrong a couple times. I should get up the game that's the example game. It was a classical game that I played. Give me a second. So this is a game that I played last year. It was a classical game. These are ECF ratings. And my opponent actually found my chess.com before the game and had prepared this opening really, really well. So we're going to take a look at it. I believe that we both pretty much played a perfect game. Yeah, close to it. This was a classical game, by the way. And might be worth covering in the future. They tried to trick me in the opening. I need to pull down my... I'll put that down so you guys can see. It was quite an accurate game. I was fairly happy with it. But... You're going to play my recommendation from now? Don't play the Wagon Gambit. I wasn't recommending anything. Okay. So I'm just going to get started. The Wagon Gambit is better than the Queen's Gambit. Honestly, Wagon Gambit is better than the Queen's Gambit, accepted. Yeah, so my opponent had clearly prepared for me. I played bishop d3, and quite annoyingly, they took the d4 pawn fairly quick. You want to share a funny game? Okay, I might look at it at the end of the stream. But they took on d4, and this is the apparent refutation. It's not a refutation. It is actually just equality, as most of chess is. We go knight to f3. After the queen goes here, we castle. And castling, I believe castles and takes on f5 is pretty interchangeable. You can play either. I castled and then took on f5. Probably you want to take on f5 first, so that they don't take on d3, and then your position isn't as good. So I made a small inaccuracy in the opening. Doesn't really matter. I then took, and we played pawn to c4. All right, Moscow. I feel like we broke him, guys. I feel like we've broken Moscow. They know the theory. Finally, everyone just took it. Yeah, exactly. It was some guy had prepared it against me. It's a classical game. So why are we playing pawn c4? Does anyone know? Anyone have an idea? First off, if they take the pawn, it's mate in 1, which is a pretty funny threat. So it looks like maybe someone thought it was a free pawn. It's not a free pawn. You can't even take it. But that's not the main reason that we're trying to play it. Anyone with an idea? Give you guys a couple more seconds and then I'll just continue. Yeah, it unlocks queen b3. Exactly. And you can put the knight behind the pawn. We also want to... Yeah, we would like to break up the center if possible. And oftentimes if we can make this trade... and this side of the board gets weakened, then we can start to invade with the queen and the knight, and it can be very dangerous. And if they take this way with the e-pawn, then we can often shove through pawn to e6 with a rook or something. Anyway, my opponent plays knight to d7. Now queen b3 isn't really that potent. Do you know any tricky but sound openings against d4? Tricky? Honestly, there's not that many tricky openings against d4 that are very good. Everything that's tricky is just bad. England is bad. Wagon Gambit is bad. The only stuff you can really play that's like kind of bad but also practically fine is, I would say, King's Indian. Yeah, that's about it. Everything else is kind of just groveling and making equality. Queen's Gambit declines fine. I've looked at the Janowski recently. I think it's worthwhile taking a look at that maybe. Dutch is a good one. I don't play the Dutch, so I don't know much about it. So yeah, Dutch is definitely worthwhile. The Leningrad Dutch I like, actually. That's the one with b6 and f5. So anyway, after they move their knight to d7, I put my knight out to c3. You still cannot take this pawn. Actually, no, you can take the pawn. I'm sorry. They did take the pawn. But after they took the pawn, I put my queen in the center. Now, this pawn is attacked. We also defend this pawn. And I'm looking to bring my rook out. And there's an idea here that after they move their bishop out and attack my queen, I'm trying to remember. I think there was a trap that I had set up. It was something like pawn to c5, I think was one of the moves where I had a trick. And after the pawn goes to c5, my ideas were that they would have no defense to this invasion over here. But they continued to play good moves. They played the bishop out to c5. I took the pawn on c4. The Shigoran. Isn't the Shigoran just like the one where you play knight c6 when you should be putting a pawn on c6 and then you're very sad? I don't really know. But after the queen takes here, we're actually sacrificing another pawn with knight takes on e5. And what was scary about this is that I didn't actually know that this was still like theoretically the best line, which was pretty stressful. I thought I was just in trouble. So they played knight takes on e5, which sacrifices the bishop. But if I take the bishop, of course they have knight takes on f3, and they would win my queen, and I would be very sad. So I have to take the knight. I do take the knight. After the queen captures, I then play this move, knight to e4, attacking the bishop, and I want the bishop to move away, and then I want to be able to move a rook to the d file and combine with the knight in order to jump into this weak d6 square, because they still haven't castled. They play bishop to e7. Rook goes to d1. This is the only move to try and keep up the initiative. The ideas are that we want to play rook e1, potentially exchange the bishop, and try to break in with something like queen to b4 as well. It's possible. They play knight f6 and rook to e1, disallowing them to castle, because after castles, we have knight to f6, which would win the queen. So they have to play some move, moving the queen away, or trade the knight in the center. They decide to capture the knight in the center. I played rook e4. This was apparently like the one inaccuracy of the game. They went queen to c5. They had to play queen to c7 to apparently keep an advantage, but I had a plan here that I wanted to go bishop takes, queen takes, rook here, and after castles, rook d7. I didn't think it was so bad, something like queen f6. And this position is probably about equal. It's nothing great for white, but white shouldn't be losing that often because this c6 pawn's very weak. But anyway, queen here. I retreat the queen, now attacking this d7, making this queen d7 threat. And they have to exchange on g5, it's the only move. Otherwise, queen d7 is coming, and we are breaking through. Look at this attack down the center. Of course, if the rook goes here, we just have queen takes d8 and a checkmate. So they didn't fall for that. They took here, we had queen d7. And after some exchanges later, I tried to keep the center, tried to keep the d file. Queen c7 is always the move. Yeah, but they had a problem. The problem they didn't like with queen c7 is that I would own the d file, and then I would have put a rook on d7, which looked a little bit unpleasant. So he tried to win the queen, but they stopped me with this pawn going to h4. Yeah, I then hit them with a rook h4. The idea being that after this exchange, you would win the rook, which was quite a nice little trick. And I thought I actually had good winning chances here because I had one more trick that after the queen takes the b2 pawn, I wanted them to go for this one. But we didn't get to pull that off. They just blocked with the queen. And then I made a pretty weird draw. It was a weird king and pawn endgame draw. Yeah, we ended up... They blocked me in, and we agreed to a draw. So that was basically what happens if your opponent plays the refutation. The important stuff to remember is that after they play queen g4, you are meant to take the bishop first. So you get this position, castles. They have to go pawn to e6, really. There is also f6, which I guess f6 I think is why I didn't like this line that much. It was a fairly accurate game. They had a small advantage out of the opening, but we survived. So you want to exchange the bishops, you want to play c4. Try and bring your pieces to the d file as quick as possible if they open it up. If they don't open it up, then you want to trade yourself and try and get them to take with the c or the e pawn. If the e pawn takes, we can shove it through with the rook behind and then try and break up black's position. And if the c pawn takes, then that relinquishes the b5 square, which our knight can use to try and jump into the game. These are really the essential ideas that you have to know. If you know these ideas, then you will not be beaten by this defense with black. Okay, so that's that game. We've now covered the apparent refutation, which is not really a refutation. And I think it's time to finally take a look at this line that I promised people a lot earlier on. And that is the move pawn to f6, where things get really, really crazy. Pawn to f6. So let's take a look. h4, h5, bishop comes out, and pawn to f6. Does anyone have any idea what the winning move, well, not the winning move, but what the best move here for white is? It's really, really crazy one. Any ideas? Pawn to f6 from black. They're attacking our bishop. Bishop d3. That's right. Wow. Yeah, bishop d3. We don't care. We say, take my bishop, because of course I will take your bishop. But what doesn't make sense is what happens after they just take our bishop. Well, we have queen takes bishop. We lose a bishop. But then the queen dives into g6, forcing the king up to d7. Pawn goes to e6 now. The king can go over, and we take on g5. And what's crazy about this position is that two pawns, and this queen here, have completely shut down all of black's movement. White actually holds an advantage in this position. And can anyone guess what white's next three moves are, which basically guarantee to win the game? Anyone want to have a go? It's literally one of the most stupid plans I've ever seen, but black can't stop it, and black just loses. Yeah. Knight to f3, knight to e5, knight to f7, and then take the rook. It's a 4-move plan, but black is so paralyzed that black just can't stop the knight moving up. Yeah, the knight just moves up the board and takes the rook. That is so ridiculous. I'm gonna get a game up. One of the games where I have it. Yep, that is correct. So ever since I learned bishop d3, the win rate was much higher. Bishop takes on d3, they take on g5, queen g6. Let's go here. Takes. And yeah, let's see here, knight f3. Oh no, I messed up a game. This isn't a very good ad. I think I lost both of them and made a draw. I flagged some guy. What happened? Okay, for some unknown reason, I didn't move my knight up and take the rook. I don't know what I was doing. Wait a minute. If I moved my knight up, what was I scared of? Guys, I don't know what I was doing here. I must have mouse slipped, actually. I think I probably mouse slipped knight d2 while I was going knight c3. Because knight c3 is the obvious move with the fork. So I think I played knight d2 as a mouse slip and then was probably quite annoyed the rest of the game. And then things got weird. But surely I thought I had a win in this one. Maybe it was... Okay, let's say after b6. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, this one was a very long game for some reason. Let's check it out. Okay, so this one, we got our trick off. e6 takes. And yeah, in this one, the knight did just jump in. They were very sad because the rook was about to get trapped, so they just gave me the rook. I took it. And then we took the pawn, and then just played the normal developing moves. Jumped in. The bishop was so stuck. Like, the bishop just didn't have any squares to go to, so I just went and attacked it and then took it. We took some more pawns and converted the game pretty easily. Actually, this looks a little bit messy. It's not a great ad for my conversion skills, but the pawn, eventually we made it. And then took another pawn or something. I was dancing around with the knight. Finally, the pawn promotes. Okay, so I think that's enough with that one. You wish you could do a chess live stream, but you don't know how to yap enough. Yeah, just say stuff and don't think. That's the trick. And I don't really think anyway, so you just got to short circuit your brain. So this is a really cool trick. Yeah, after f6, try it yourself. Yapano, yeah. Bishop d3 on f6. That's how we like it. I feel like the music's a bit low. So what else did I have to cover? Oh yeah, pawn to h6. I think it's the final one, right? Everything else isn't really worth covering. And we've covered all of the main moves. f6, queen. Honestly, if you know f6 and queen b6, you can play this. Queen a5 just is rubbish. You just develop your knight. Just develop your pieces. You're just playing chess at this point. And yeah, other than that, not a whole lot. h6 is the only other one we have to cover, but it is a pretty spicy one. After h6, we have pawn to g4. We kick the bishop back, and let's go all the way back. So h6, g4 kicks the bishop away. And now I assume most people at this point, probably familiar with the key ideas in this opening, can tell me what the move here is for white. I'm sure someone can tell me. No, it's not bishop d3. As soon as the bishop goes away, if we can play pawn to e6, we want to, right? We play pawn e6, yeah. Once? I don't know what you're saying. If the pawn captures, then we can go bishop d3, yeah, because the pawn is already here. And I'm trying... Yeah, it was pawn e6, exactly. Trying to remember here. I think one of the main moves is... You missed the whole point? Yeah, it's okay, it's okay. The pawn always goes to e6. After the bishop takes on d3, our queen now looks at g6. If the queen here goes to d6, then we have pawn to f4, and it stops their pawn from moving forward. And now we have some simple ideas. We want to move our knight to e5, play pawn to h5, bishop goes to e3, knight goes to d2, castle long, and essentially black will never develop this bishop, which means they will never develop the rook, which means that black will be very sad. And that's basically all you need to know in order to play this opening, right? The only other real thing to take a look at, I believe, is, yeah, there's bishop to e4 is slightly stronger. So there's bishop to e4, f3, bishop goes to h7, then e6. And then there's some weird stuff with queen d6 takes, and then pawn to f4 here. Don't know what's going on? It's okay. No one really knows what's going on in these lines. They're so crazy. But there is a cool idea, and I want you guys to try and find it. The knight goes to f6 for black. Makes a lot of sense. It attacks this pawn here. Anyone try and find the idea? This one's very hard. Hello, Shipcav on the Twitch. We're currently doing an openings lesson live stream, but I might play a couple games because we're almost finished up. So I might be able to play you after that. We're just going to be taking a look at a couple more lines. It is not g5. g5, the knight would probably jump into the center and we could be in some trouble. We'll have one more guess. The queen opens up. Yeah, the queen can access here, but it's not that good. Knight c3, then g5. Not quite. Okay, the move is knight to f3. And the point is that after they take the pawn, it might look like your move is knight going to e5. And I'm going to be honest, the next move is even more unfindable than knight to f3. Because you can play knight to f3. Oh, you meant knight to f3, right? That's correct. If you play knight to f3 with the idea of putting it on e5, it makes a lot of sense. But notice that the queen can go to g6 in this line, which is pretty annoying. The queen gets into the game, and we can't really castle, which we want to castle. So, oh wow, that's a lot of challenges. So knowing all of this, instead of putting the knight on e5, what do we play? If anyone can get this, that would be crazy. Can anyone get this? Knight to g5 check. That blunders a pony. And then gives it back, and then... Yeah, maybe it's not terrible. I don't know what this is, though. This doesn't look like the way. Bishop to h3. After bishop to h3, there might be... I actually don't know. h5, knight here. I mean, maybe it's okay. But it's not the move. Not quite. It's the second most common move in the Masters database, though. I'm just going to give it. The move is pawn to h5. Right? And the point is, the next most common move by the Masters is stuff like knight to d7. And now, I think... you mostly want to be playing, I think it's like knight e5 here, right? I'm just going to put it on the engine because I already know anymore. Yes, it's stuff like bishop here, knight c3, and then you eventually play knight to e5. Yeah, so you have bishop to h3, the knight goes back, and then you can put your knight in the center with the idea that you're getting this fork trick. But also the point is that if you go here, say, then after the knight takes and you can take back, what you'll see is that the queen can't go to g6. So they would have to give you the knight. You could take, you also have an even better move with bishop to f4, and you can capture the knight for free, which would be pretty nice. So that's why we play h5, is so that we can take away the g6 square from the queen, and then play the move knight to e5, which will win us a piece. It's all pretty ridiculous. The video's lagging. Yeah, I can see that. Sorry. And if we can get this position, then we can just continue with standard development. Stuff like bishop to h3 castles. We bring out the queen, bring out the bishop, and white has an advantage here, just because the black king is very weak and doesn't have much good development. Okay, I think that was the main other line that I wanted to cover. We might take a look at bishop d7 as well. I've noticed that some stronger players started playing this against me. Bishop d7. But on bishop d7, actually I'm not sure what the best move is here, to be honest. We have the master's database. The best move is knight to c3 or h5. h5 I think is what I started playing. And the point is to stop this pawn going forward. And then you play knight c3, bishop e3, queen d2, here. Castle short or castle long, doesn't really matter. Essentially, if you get this position, no one really knows what's going on. It gets too crazy. But I would just say play h5, stopping them from going forward. They'll trap themselves. Then start going for knight c3. If they go c5, then go bishop to e3, queen b6, you go queen d2. If they take the pawn, you play rook b1, queen a3, and probably just take that guy. So you can play like this for sure. If they go here, just knight up. You would play e6 and c5? Yeah, that's exactly what they do. Black, yeah, exactly. Black basically decides they don't want to play the Caro Khan anymore and they play the French. So you end up with a French defense, except with g4 and h5 included. And honestly, I don't really know who this benefits. The engine says that white is fine, but black is okay as well. So yeah, essentially this opening, black gives up on playing the Caro Khan and is like, yeah, let's just play the French. They've been intimidated by the Tal so much, they just decide to give up. But I think that's about it. I'm just going to go back to the opening tree for a second, see if there's anything else major that I've missed. I just heard a follow notification. Let's see who it was. Thank you, Zoe, for a follow. Okay, so I think that's it. We've covered h5, we've covered h6, we've taken a look at queen to b6. Yeah, that's why you play h5, exactly. You don't get in any of this crazy messes. And we've also looked at, yeah, bishop here. We've looked at this. I don't know if it was played first by Mikhail Tal, but he made it popular. We've looked at h5 with the bishop g5 line. And in this one, there's only really queen b6 and f6. So I think that about covers it all. I hope people found this useful. I think we might have some time for 1 or 2 viewer games before finishing up. That's why you don't play bishop f5 and just play c5. No, not we have our systems for c5 as well. Just haven't taken a look at them yet. Okay, anyone want a quick game?